Okay, all right. So welcome everyone to the March 8th, 2023 meeting of Mansfield Sustainability Committee. It's great to see you all. We're just going to start with, I've called the meeting to order. So we'll just start with some quick introductions because we have a visitor tonight and we're excited about that. So I'm Lynn Stoddard. I'm chair of the committee and a resident of Mansfield. And I'm just going to call people out so we don't stumble. Bill, you're off mute.
I am. No, okay.
Yeah.
I've lived in Mansfield for the last 55 years. So, okay. So, long time.
Thanks, Bill. And he's been a member of this committee for quite a while too.
Yes.
Al.
Hello. I'm Al. I am here tonight representing the town council. Been with the sustainability since my election in 2019. And my wife is also a member of this committee and she'll be here very shortly.
Thanks, Al. Hello,
All
Peter.
Right. Peter Millman, longtime resident. I cannot remember how long I've been on the committee. So that means it's probably more than a year or two. And yeah.
Great.
Glad to be here.
Thanks. Susanna, hello.
Hey everyone, nice to see you all. I'm Susanna Everett. I'm the school board representative, the Mansfield School Board representative for the Sustainability Committee. So pre-K through 8.
Awesome. And the Pearies.
Hi, I'm Jen Stone. I'm just a visitor today, a longtime resident of Mansfield with an interest in sustainability. And yeah, we'll leave it at that for now.
And I'm Bob Perry, and also been living here since 1980. Interested in the work that you're doing, and if you notice a little fuzzy thing in the corner, it's Cooper.
Hi, Cooper. Great. And Ginny?
I am Ginny Walton, the staff person for this committee meeting.
Okay.
And Abby.
Hi, everyone. Abby Massaro, your guest tonight. Thank you so much for having me. I am a waste reduction consultant with the Center for Ecotechnology, who is an environmental nonprofit that helps businesses and people conserve energy and reduce waste. We are located in Western Massachusetts, headquartered there, but we operate pretty much nationwide at this point. So very exciting. And I'll be speaking more to what we do and how we do it with the deconstruction section. So thank you again for having me. And it's so nice to meet you all.
Excellent. Great to have you here. And I see Katie joining. Looks like she's connecting. So in the meantime, let's, oh, hello, Katie.
I'm finally here. Thank you.
Welcome. Hi, good to see you. All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve the February 8th meeting minutes. Where are all my movers?
I will move to approve the February 8th meeting minutes.
Thank you, Susanna. Do we have a second?
I do, yes, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. Any discussion?
I abstain. I was not able to attend.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we have Katie as an abstention. So moved. Thank you. So yes, Al.
I abstained also.
Okay, 2 abstentions. Okay, parliamentarians in the group, do we need a motion to rearrange the order of the agenda so that we do deconstruction next and move the climate discussion to 4th? Or do we need to vote on that, Al? Changing the order of the agenda? Hello. Can you guys hear me?
I don't know.
I
that
do
we
think if you're going to change anything on the agenda, you have to put it in a motion
All right, let's
to,
just
to
do
move
it.
I
it.
move we change the order of the agenda so that we can start with deconstruction.
Awesome.
I'll second it.
Thanks,
Katie
Katie.
Fatoni.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, please say no. Abstentions. Okay, so moved. All right, welcome again, Abby. We'll hand it over to you. Ginny, was there any introductory stuff you wanted to do or related to the topic?
Well, I guess the only thing would be that this committee has talked about deconstruction. And in fact, before the Mansfield Elementary School was built, there was work with the building committee in looking at potential avenues for deconstruction for Southeast Elementary School. And I guess I would say not much came of that. So, you know, how do we move the dial a little bit more than just advocating?
Yeah, and Ginny and I were discussing this last week and thinking that now is an opportune time to get a policy in place or propose a policy that's not necessarily associated with a project, but just like a forward-looking policy that we will begin to do this stuff. So Abby has experience with this and we're so happy she was able to join us tonight. So turn it over to you, Abby.
Thank you so much, Lynn and Jenny. You know, I think thinking back to that project, a few things could have been done maybe a little differently. Timeline is always so important with deconstruction projects, and getting in and getting contractors and building owners on board very early on in the like pre-bid phase is so important. So tonight, I really thought I would just talk sort of casually about the work that I've done primarily in Massachusetts, but now we also offer this deconstruction technical assistance is what we call it widely across Connecticut, as we're funded by the EPA, USDA, and Connecticut Deep in Connecticut to offer this assistance to businesses, institutions, and contractors. So firstly, we have two resource documents that I sent to Ginny early, a couple of days ago, that I'd love to distribute to the group that kind of explain deconstruction at a high level and really could be shared in Mansfield with contractors that you know that maybe some of the big names are, or that whenever projects come up at this level, that our information, you know, you can put us in touch with them. I can give you my cards. However we can do it to get the our information out about, and we can offer deconstruction assistance. We also have a free virtual event coming up at the end of the month, March 28th, and I'll also ask that Ginny distribute that out to the group, and really if it could be shared widely across Mansfield and beyond. Anyone can attend to hear me kind of break down pathways for deconstruction, as we call it, and also hear from a Connecticut-based contractor who works a lot with Eco Building Bargains, who I actually should have mentioned the introduction. CET, the organization I work for, also owns and operates the largest reclaimed building materials store in New England, located in Springfield, Mass. And we actually serve all of Connecticut to rescue used building materials and surplus building materials from across the state. So please, we'll get the link to you so you can come to the event or share the event, especially if you know that there's some big name contractors in town that need a little bit more information about deconstruction, because what we really find is that deconstruction to contractors who maybe, or building owners that is not front of mind to them, they haven't done this type of construction in the past, it can be a little intimidating to think of completely unbuilding a building in the way in which it was built, which is the standard definition for deconstruction. But the way we talk to contractors and people about it is that there are different pathways, essentially, that this work can be done. So you can start by just maybe pulling out kitchen cabinetry or donating windows on a project that you think might be a good fit. And that's something that our one-on-one free technical assistance with the contractor on a specific project can help them identify what could be potentially reclaimed by working with Eco Building Bargains or the restores or the lumber companies in Connecticut as well, that we can help sort of create a waste management plan. As I kind of started this talk earlier, planning is so important. And when the project is starting next month, the likelihood for deconstruction is not high. It's depending on the size of the project, whether it's a residential or commercial building, etc. Also on one of these documents is links to various deconstruction policies and ordinances from across the country that we've identified. The closest one is like geographically is the city of Boston's, and that's who I worked primarily with them on it. And the document links to the city's actual document for this initiative is what they call it. It's actually not a policy or an ordinance, but what the city of Boston and what we helped them discover was that, we can start working with contractors now. We can start spreading the word about the outlets and the ways that deconstruction is done and free assistance through CET. We don't really need to hold it up with an ordinance. Of course, that's an incentive to potentially getting more deconstruction happening in the city, but it's not, let's not wait for it, essentially. So certainly policies and ordinances can be modeled after the many ones that are available across the country. The city of Portland, Oregon was the first, I believe, and has definitely the most robust. But there are various options out there as far as demolition delays. So actually pausing and requesting some type of deconstruction there, or else, I suppose, demolition is delayed. Also, historic preservation is another way to encourage adaptive reuse, which essentially is just utilizing the building for what it is now, instead of deconstructing it, essentially. But there are many options out there. But I would say that like step one could be and is, we're also working with the city of Glastonbury, Connecticut. Sorry, not Glastonbury. Westport, Connecticut. We just met with their sustainability committee and conservation commission to discuss how they can expand deconstruction as well. So it'd be interesting to see you both connect on where you're at. And I know that they're going to be sharing our information with contractors that have applied for permits in the town to demolish or build a building, and hopefully intervene with some resources for deconstruction very early on in the process again. So I know that's a lot of information, but I think it would be great to have you at the event on March 28th virtually. And also I'll get with Jenny to share those resources that I think are another good place to start. But let me know if there's anything else you wanted me to cover or share with you.
Yeah. Well, let's just open it up if anyone has questions or anything on your mind right now.
Now, this language that you have, was it submitted to your planning and development or planning and zoning committee so that they could put it part of their zoning regulations?
So I haven't drafted these regulations before. What we have for you is different ordinances and policies to model after. I suppose, again, I don't work at the city level, but I suppose that could be an option. It really is figuring out what the process currently is for construction projects to occur in Mansfield, and different places to intervene. Again, I suppose, and there's model language again that you can refer to off of the other city ordinances.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just sort of curious how you came to be so interested in deconstruction. Did you have a background in construction or architecture or something like that?
No, thank you for asking. I worked for Lane Construction Corporation, which you might know. They have their headquarters are in Cheshire, Connecticut, but that was primarily road construction. I've been at CET for a little over 4 years now, and it really was a natural development. I think we address all business waste. So we really work with businesses and help them develop food waste recovery or recycling programs. And the idea of, and before CET, I worked for waste management. So just the standard, pick up trash and recycling and get it somewhere else. So when I came to CET, I really started to see the value in waste prevention versus like finding something to do with it after you've created it. And I think thinking of with that mindset of like food recovery and selecting food for food donation, it's kind of similar to building materials, and we call it building material rescue, right? So a lot of organizations exist to reclaim building materials like Eco Building Bargains, the Restores, Boston Building Resources up in Boston. And I just think it's so fascinating, the idea of, number one, like using the buildings for what they were intended to be used for, and or if it can't be reused, then pulling out what can be reused and resold to someone at a more affordable rate so that they can use it in a future building. Like it's full circle. It's so exciting. Just a natural progression, I suppose, in my career.
So if can you talk briefly about the economics of deconstruction? In other words, does it cost much more to?
Absolutely.
Carefully.
This is a wonderful segue into the meeting on March 28th. I'm going to keep plugging that. Welcome. But we certainly deconstruction, the careful, reclamation of cabinetry or flooring is more labor intensive versus coming in with a wrecking ball or having on-site staff just demo the building and then putting it into mixed roll-off dumpsters, which is like the standard process for lots of projects everywhere. However, disposal is expensive. Those dumpsters cost a lot of money. In growing, as we know, the capacity for disposal of trash, C&D, that's not free. Of course, the labor to also demo it and put the contents of the building into a dumpster is expensive. So reclaiming building materials and getting it to a nonprofit reuse outlet is usually free. Again, there's labor costs involved with that careful removal and making sure that it's out of not getting rained on while it's waiting to get picked up. But what we found in several case studies, again, that you'll hear about at the event, and I can also email you some examples to share with people that might be needing more convincing, is that it actually saves contractors money on their projects. A few estimates from some Connecticut contractors we got and shared in a recent newsletter was, a standard kitchen remodel maybe requires 2 full dumpsters if you're going in there and smacking everything up and putting it into a dumpster. And they estimate it was at least a few $1,000s that they saved in disposal costs. So there's lots of different situations again, so it's not going to be the same for every project is going to save money, but they've also said it's a wonderful marketing tool for their customers, especially the residential customers or commercial customers that have sustainability goals that they'd like to meet, or share good news about what good things that they did to save the environment. So I would say like another benefit of these projects is the contractor being able to sell their customer on, hey, we're going to pull out your kitchen that maybe it still is a fine kitchen, but they wanted to upgrade to something nicer or whatever it could be, and they that kitchen's going to get a new home somewhere else. So a lot of homeowners feel good about that. Plus, there's a tax incentive for donating to a reuse outlet, which the outlet provides their donation receipt, and then the contractor delivers that to the homeowner, uses it as part of the avoided costs for that project.
Excellent. Any last questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. So you've dealt with Connecticut a little bit. Where Mansfield's located is in the eastern central part of the state. So we're about 24 miles east of Hartford. Where do you think our weakest link is? Is it in the infrastructure, the receiving facility infrastructure? Is it in contractors with the capability to deconstruct? Like, do we, if there were contractors in Mansfield that were like, yeah, we're going to deconstruct Vinton Elementary School, let's say, are there outlets for those items? I mean, is there the capacity to accept materials that aren't hours away? So,
yeah. It's a great question, and I was actually again in preparation for this event looking up sort of what currently exists for infrastructure out there, and I would say that depending on the material, like it is there. And what we do find, like even in the city of Boston, when we're doing projects there, is that the outlets like Masons, gotta be some masonry organizations out there that are really interested in reclaimed clay brick, for example, and often will pay per brick to pick it up from the site. So really what I find anywhere that I talk about deconstruction is the contractor awareness. Like they just have done it, they've always done it one way, and it's a little scary, intimidating to think about doing their projects a different way, that it's going to add time and add money to the project, when it's carefully planned on again, and done in a careful way. We hope it won't add time or money to timeline to the project. So really contractor awareness, we can kind of piece together the outlets like we've done in the past. And again, Eco Building Margins serves all across Connecticut. So that's definitely one outlet. And I believe even Boston Building Resources, depending on what the item is, may be available to travel. But that's really the legwork that we do, that if we're working with a contractor in a project, and we identify like cabinetry or bricks or landscape stones, whatever it could be that we think is an easy win to pull out, we can find a home for it, we can work on that. We've worked on projects on Martha's Vineyard, and you can imagine the limited transportation and outlet availability there may have been, but we made it work.
Did you have another question, Ginny?
Well, I guess I did want to say to Katie's question, and as a follow-up to this group, I did talk to the building inspector, the building department, about their demolition permit, and just introducing the idea of deconstruction, what that might look like. And so he knows that this committee has talked about this. You know, he's been made aware. I think that they're really, that's kind of where the focus of our attention needs to be, is with the building department. And then I did talk to the town planner also about incorporating deconstruction in like construction work, you know, for new building projects. And they might, so it'd be for clean materials like extra clean wood or wallboard or, you know, things of that sort. So, so I think there is a receptiveness to do that. What would be needed for the town planner is language that would be, and that's what Katie was asking, language that would go into the regulations. So I was poking around in the guidance documents that CET has put together, some very nice documents. And really, I didn't find anything with that specifically. You know, there are ordinances and policies, but so yeah, so you know, maybe this could be called an initiative like what Boston has. Instead of diving into policy or ordinance, I think that the heavy lift will be in the building department. And like you were suggesting, with working with contractors and just like, how does this work? And can I make money doing this? Can I make as much money doing this as demolition? I guess would be more to the point. Can I make more money doing this versus demolition, right?
Sorry, Jenny, I can get you the contact with the City of Oregon, who's actually going to be speaking at the Mass DEP. So in Massachusetts, they have a deconstruction work group. I think you've participated in the past, maybe. I thought I've seen you there. But
maybe.
Anyways, he will be attending at the next meeting, and it could be a good connection if he can share his ordinance language. But again, yeah, it is great to just start spreading the word on deconstruction resources like CET now, and work on simultaneously work on how to make it an ordinance or policy at the city level. I think is a good.
Yeah, this is great. So I think we have a lot of opportunities the committee can discuss at a future meeting, and this tiered approach of working on outreach as well as a potential, you know, something in the zoning regs and the building department, and maybe even an initial policy that says for municipal buildings, Mansfield will, because we have 3 schools that we don't know if they'll, 2 left, that will continue to exist or be demolished. And it would be nice to have this as a stated goal kind of before all those things are determined. So great. Well, we'll let you go, Abby. Thank you so much for your time and for kind of jumping in on short notice. And yeah, I'm excited about the 28th. We'll spread the word, and hopefully some of us will be able to attend.
Definitely. And Jenny, you have all those links and resources if you want to distribute out to your committee here. Otherwise, I'm always happy to come back if you have any other questions or ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Excellent. So we'll keep that as an agenda item for next time, since we have a bunch of other stuff to get through tonight. So that moves us to the climate activists. Oh, yes, to Jen and Bob. Yeah, you're on. Oh, you guys are on mute right
now. I brought him along because he might be able to answer questions that I can't. remember things that I forget. So we're both here. So just,
I'm useful sometimes.
It can be useful sometimes. So just as a introduction, a reminder, I'm not sure that everybody was here when we came to a meeting. I came to a meeting, I don't know when it was, maybe in September. Bob and I lived in Scotland from September 2021 through last July, and we've been in Mansfield since the end of July, and we're heading back to Scotland next week for another year. And so, and we're heading to the same little town that we were in before because we liked it so much. So when we got there, we were in a little town on the East Coast called East Linton, and it's a village of about 1,800 people, so a lot smaller than Mansfield. But one of the things that we loved about it is that there's a very friendly community. It's very walkable. We got around for being there for a year. We did not have a car. We were able to take a bus or a train to most places we wanted to go, or walk. And you know, a few times we had a car with a friend or a family member, but generally to get around, we didn't need a car, which was pretty cool. But we also got involved with a group called Climate Action East Linton, and we were impressed with what they were doing. And in some of the things that we were learning about sort of climate activism in Scotland. And generally, I think that what you hear in the news, if you hear anything, is about the, you know, the folks who
glue themselves to paintings.
Yeah, glue themselves to paintings, or, you know, the more militant activists, which there are in Scotland, and they might have a role to play. But those aren't the folks that we were working with. So we were basically, the group Climate Action East Linton is a group of about, it says on their website, they have a really awesome website, which they've been working on a lot this year. And it's at cael.community. So Cael Community is their website. And so they say that there's about 100 people in the group. Our experience when we were working with them is that there are probably, you know, 20 to 30 who do a lot of the work, at least the sort of organizing work, but then there are people, there's many different projects that they do. So there are people who are involved in the different projects. So without going on for too long, I just want to give you a little bit of information about them. And why we were impressed with them. And one of the things is, I think one of their main goals is to really try to connect with the community, to try to be very visible, so that a lot of the people living in the community, even if they're not involved in the Cael organization, sort of are aware of what's going on. And there's issues about the environment and sustainability and climate change sort of present all the time, but in positive ways, in ways that people are doing things. So there are a lot of different groups within the organization, so a lot of different things they do. So for example, there's a group that, there's an old, about an old British phone box in town that doesn't have a phone in it anymore. And that's been used for a variety of purposes that are very visible. So once there was a seed swap that went on for about a month, and people could bring seeds and take seeds. Once there was just sort of information about climate change, and school children from the town made little posters and put them up in this on this phone box, so that people were just able to sort of see what other people in the town were thinking about in terms of climate change. So they use that as sort of a place for people to go to share ideas. It's just very visible. There's also, there's a group that does some tree planting. there's a group that works on, it's called, I think it's the Wildlife Network. And so they do various things with trying, it's kind of, I think about the pollinator pathway that we have in Mansfield and in the area. Setting up gardens, working with the schools to do gardens with the children, setting up some demonstration gardens, having workshops about how to take care of the hedgehogs that might be in somebody's yard, because there's hedgehogs around. So doing things like that, and they invite the whole community to take part in their workshops, which generally get filled. They do focus often on children, getting the children involved, which then gets the families and parents involved. There's a very active group that's part of this network called
Fixing for a Future.
Fixing for a Future, which has received a large grant from the Scottish government to do some of the work that it does. And it has a tool library, which Bob was volunteering at, a little bit more, I think, robust than the one we have in Mansfield. So a tool library that you pay £25 a year to be part of, and then you can borrow all sorts of tools. They also do a repair cafe every 2 months, and they do lots of training for young people and young, particularly vulnerable people, to try to give them the skills to learn how to repair things, learn how to build things, learn how to sort of become part of a sustainable community. So it's also the one other thing I'll say about it is the general climate action Clinton group. It's really just like a really friendly bunch of people. They're open to different ideas. They're not dogmatic. They really just want to get people involved in wherever they're at. And they just started doing a once a month, just a social gathering once a month in the pub that everybody's invited to. I think each one has a theme. So for example, the one that just happened yesterday or Monday was, the theme was resources. And so people were supposed to think about what resources do they have that they could share with the community, or what resources do they need. So it's a group that really encourages communication and community building, which I think we really appreciated that. And it's also connected to some larger groups that are throughout Scotland, some ones that are nearby, something called Sustaining Dunbar, which is a local town, and Sustaining North Berwick, which is another local town. So they're very much connected with the climate action or sustainability groups in the other towns that are right nearby. And I was just I was looking things up today just to try to give myself a little better picture of sort of all of Scotland, which I don't really know how it all works. And I don't think either of us know that much about, the local, like the municipality type of government and what their involvement is. But there are two groups in Scotland that I thought would be interesting to just mention. One is called the Scottish Communities Climate Action Network. And so it's throughout the country. So all these different groups that so many towns or cities have are part of this network, so that they could share information and share resources in a way that seems really effective. And there's lots of workshops that are done and meetings that they have that are trying to really get people together to impact change in their local communities, but also to do things, in the larger scale with the Scottish government. And then the last thing I'll mention, and then see if you have some questions. I noticed that the Fixing for a Future group had received funding from something called, what was it called? I think it was Net Zero Nation. And so this is a government organization, netzeronation.scot. which looks like it's a government organization that, if you go on their website, has this huge amount of resources on their website of how to do climate action. I mean, climate cafes, and what kind of topics you might want to talk about, and what resources you might need, and what talking points might be, and how to set up repair cafes, and, you know, just information about how you can do things to affect change, coming from the Scottish government, which I thought was kind of interesting. And they also provide funding for various projects. So yeah, I think I was impressed by what was happening locally, but also impressed by what seems to be a general commitment by communities and the government to address climate change, and to try to be really visible so people know about what's going on and have ways to get involved.
I would quickly throw in that one interesting thing about our experience with Kill from, you know, now it's 8 months, is that we saw a growth in Kill while we were there. And the nature of their connections with other groups is, their connections are just growing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so there's a very good chance that when we get there, and as we move through the spring and into the summer, we'll find out about even more possibilities, more connections, more initiatives that are going on. And we'd be glad to, you know, let you know about some of those things if you are interested.
Awesome. Thank you. This is really inspiring, and it's exciting you guys are going back. Let's open it up for questions.
I want to move there.
Yeah.
I mean, they have their
problems. You guys start a commune, like a co-housing place there, and we'll move.
Yeah, yeah. We could do that.
Buy a hotel.
Buy a castle.
Oh.
I love that it sounds very kind of organic. What people are interested in, they do, you know, they're motivated to do.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm wondering, and so maybe this question is not the orientation of the group, but is there, like, for the town a carbon neutral goal or anything? And is there in the town?
Yeah, I think so. I think there is, and I'm not sure I don't know what that is.
Yeah. I'd be curious, because towns here, we struggle with, like Mansfield set the goal for carbon neutral municipal operations, but the counting is hard, and the greenhouse gas inventories, and there are tools that are international, but it's always, yeah, I'd be curious if they have set something, or other communities that you hear about there, kind of how the community is actually tracking, how they get to zero.
Right.
Yeah.
Great question.
Be interesting. Yeah, it'd be great to stay in touch and hear what's evolving as we go back.
I don't know if you guys are able to still join us, like, with the time change and stuff, but it also sounds like a wonderful, like, kind of community center. And, like, again, so many great things happen in our community, but they're not always all connected, I think, or people don't maybe know about them. And it sounds like a really wonderful, you know, that there's a physical space that they use that is a place to communicate. And that's really cool. So something for us to think about and try to emulate. I know that, again, I know lots of amazing things happen in our community, but it's neat to think about putting them together and having even more representation from more folks.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I noticed as a difference, and it's, you know, partly the different makeup of the towns, obviously, and Mansfield is huge in terms of people, the number of people and the land mass. But it just seemed like things were more visible there. It was easier to find out what was going on. And so when I came back to Mansfield and I'm trying to find out, like, so what's going on and what's happening with, you know, climate issues and who's doing what. And I find that there's a lot of scattered information and there was no one place I could go to figure it out, you know, and I'd love to see signs up in town somewhere that tell us what's happening or what's the sustainability committee doing. So I think there's a lot going on, but people don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. And so that was, yeah, I'd love to be able to know more, like what is going on and how can people get involved.
It might seem like a silly thing, but literally in the center of the town, there was a phone box that was no longer used. Yeah, I know you did, but it was a sort of almost like a clearinghouse. And the reason I bring it up again is because of perhaps something similar that would Mansfield. I think about all the different little libraries that people put up. You know, just a box with books in it, and people trade off books. You know, you might think that there would be some similar kind of resource. And since it's such a big town, you know, the little libraries are spread out across the town, but if you chose specific locations, you know, had people that were dedicated to keeping people informed through those, you know, something similar. I mean, if you think about it, you know, Mansfield is made up of a bunch of little villages, Gurleyville and Atwoodville and Spring Hill and all those different little areas. And wherever you've got a little center, perhaps you could have some way of communicating, you know, larger goals.
It might be too, maybe sometime we could invite, I don't know if this feels kosher, but we could invite Margaret Chady to our meeting just to talk a little bit about how to get some more communication out around some of the work that is happening, or organization and website. I mean, that's her job, right? Is to communicate out with the community around all the great things that are happening. So might be, I don't know, maybe put her on the agenda sometimes if that feels like an okay thing to do.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, as somebody who works for the town, I will say that it's gotten a lot harder actually to get information to residents because it's no longer the Chronicle that people read. It's their social media group, whatever that is. I mean, an example is I called a resident who's calling about trash service and I left a message on her phone. And she had called me back and I said, did you hear my message? Because I answered all her questions. She said, no, I don't listen to my phone messages. So it's just like, it's like really, you know, like how do you get, really, my big question is, how do I inform residents? Like I put stuff in the town e-newsletter. I don't think many people read that, but that's like so long. There is so much stuff in that newsletter. That's like your town bulletin board right there.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure many people are dialed into that. I don't know how to get information to people. It's a mystery to me.
Yeah, it would be.
Oh,
go ahead, Peter.
I was curious. I have a number of questions, but I don't think there's time for more than one. First of all, good luck in your return to Scotland.
Yes, have a wonderful time.
Thanks. Thank you. Come visit.
But one question is, so what is I don't know what the equivalent of a state or a province is in Scotland. And my question would be, do any of these village groups choose to become involved in state or province climate issues or climate policy at that level?
Yeah. And a short answer, I mean, one thing that there's a lot of different ways of answering that question that representatives do go to the larger organizations
Councils. Right?
Council.
They're called councils.
You know, councils. And the councils come to us as well. We had our own member of the Scottish Parliament who would show up in the village regularly to talk about sustainability. And people could easily contact him whenever they wanted to. People running for council would come and consult with the people in Kale to see what sort of ideas they wanted to be incorporated into future agendas. I do have to say that one thing that I think helps a lot is that there's only 5.5 million people in the entire country. So that's, it's a little bit more compact and therefore a little bit easier to get a hold of somebody's ear, I guess is a good way of putting it. I mean, one thing that's, I don't know how you could reproduce this. The thought that's running through my head is to break up Mansfield back into its original villages. I don't think it's going to fly though. But one of the things about Kale and how well it worked is that you have an idea, I would say to Jen, what about this idea? And then we say, well, let's go down to the pub. And we bump into a person who we know would have an interest in an idea. You're constantly bumping into people that you want to talk to about some of these ideas. So the short answer to your question is, yeah, there's a great deal of connection between what was happening in the village and the next levels up in government.
And what is the equivalent of state or province in Scotland? Just
you're talking apples and tow trucks. There's a lot of difference. I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration. There are no states per se. There used to be counties. They don't really have that much of a sway anymore. You'll have your local council. And certainly it's broken up into regions, and the region that we're in is called East Lothian.
But there's no East Lothian.
There's no capital of East Lothian, if you will. There is an office in the town of Haddington, which takes care of Lothian Council business. But then you really move on up to really direct connection with members of Parliament.
Okay.
However, yeah, and I think we need to refresh our memories on this, but I'm not exactly sure if what I'm saying is true, but I do remember, Bob, that there was, I think, there is a climate plan for, I think it's East Lothian. So there would be an East Lothian body that would create that plan.
Yeah.
Because one of the things when we first got there that I was going to get involved in was looking at that climate plan with other members of the group and being able to provide feedback. And then I had a concussion, so I couldn't do it. And I don't know what happened. So there are, yeah, so we don't really quite know the exact way it all works, the government.
Fair enough. So I have another question, which I probably shouldn't ask with 3 minutes to go, but yeah. Would you say that this fits in to Scottish small town culture? In other words, this I would imagine that this is very consistent. It grows out very easily out of that, or is it kind of unusual for this kind of group to form?
I don't know that I can't speak one way or another about someplace 20 or 50 or 100 miles from us. I can say just briefly that the village that we're in, it's surrounded by farmland. Really, I think that creates a cohesiveness. You go to the top of the hill in our town, and you can look at the whole town from the top of that hill. And I think that there's a lot of space between the villages and smaller hamlets, if you will. And so there can be a cohesiveness just derived from the fact that it isn't, endless real estate jowl, cheek by jowl, you know, where one town stops, the next one begins. Usually there's a lot of open countryside between places.
But at the same time, I'll say there's also a lot of these kinds of groups throughout the country. So if you look at a map of Scotland, you can see, like, which I saw today, lots of groups throughout the country and in the cities. And I think one of the things that's different there than in the United States is the Scottish government as a whole very much supports trying to do things for climate change. I mean, they are striving to be a leader in dealing with climate issues. And so that is present, you know, it's very visible. So, you know, while you might have some climate deniers, you don't really have, you know, they're not very vocal. It's the policy of the country. So that's different than what we see in the United States.
Great. Well, again, thanks. And have a great time.
Yeah,
have a wonderful trip.
Very much. Thanks for sharing. And yes.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
Very good.
Look forward to hearing, reconnecting. Okay, so in the interest of time, let's see. Sustainable CT update. People got the minutes of that meeting. Did you want to add anything more to that, Ginny?
Well, I guess I want to know is if you want to devote the next meeting to Sustainable CT. One of the interns at Sustainable CT has looked at the town's 2022 actions and our certification and linked that up to what could be rolled over to 2025 and has done a gap analysis, like what more we need to be focused on in order for gold certification in 2025. So
let's do it. Let's do it. That'd be great.
So the meeting would, okay. All right. So Lynn, you'll be recusing yourself, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And Susanna, if Lena or Josh cannot attend because they said they'd co-chair, would you be willing to chair it?
Sure. I just need to make sure it's in my calendar. It will be April.
It'll be April 12th.
Okay. Yeah.
Second Wednesday. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you. Municipal environmental purchasing policy and training.
I can just say that, you know, I'm talking to the town manager about it and hopefully there's some movement on it. So, but there are there's one other thing that I'd like to mention under other business, if I could.
Sure.
It's about the packaging EPR bill that is before, it's in the Environment Committee right now at the state, and it's part of the governor's bill. And I would say, I testified last Monday. I think we need people contacting their legislators to support it because it's part of a multi-section bill that the governor's putting forth for waste management. And it's, you know, it's very possible that parts of that bill will be accepted and that the packaging EPR part will be eliminated. And what that means for the town, every town in Connecticut, 169 towns in Connecticut, is that we're going to be, you know, faced with large tipping fees for trash and recycling. A packaging EPR bill would change the financial mechanism so that instead of the towns footing the bill, it'll be the manufacturers footing the bills for their stuff. So if there's any, if you'd like, I can send you information about the bill and contact information to call your legislators about it. It does need to be voted out of the Environment Committee. And if it doesn't, last year it didn't even get voted out of the Environment Committee. If it does get voted out, then the next thing is that it goes to the House and has to be voted out of the House. You know, there's layers to this. So I've worked a lot on this with educating other municipalities about the benefits. And even so, it was really disappointing how poor the showing was from municipalities, you know, so.
Yeah, so maybe the best, thanks Ginny for sharing all that. Maybe the best thing is to send it out. I think for this committee, we don't take policy stands on behalf of the town of Mansfield, but.
No, but you could as an individual.
Yeah, so it's certainly within the common interest we share. So yeah, why don't you send that out and people can take a look at it and act on their own if they're able and inspired. That'd be great. Thanks for the work you're doing on that.
Yeah, we'll see if it bears fruit.
Yeah.
You know, it may not.
Okay, so we are at 7:04. We see on the agenda there's a repair cafe coming up on April 8th. So spread the word and pay attention to that. And I think that's it. Is there anything else we need to attend to?
Could we put on the May agenda about the Smart Power battery incentive that's being offered? I think that's pretty interesting. And I did attend the webinar last Thursday on heat pumps. And wouldn't it be nice to have a webinar on the Smart Power battery incentive that's going on? Battery backup.
Okay, great.
You know, concerning that, Eastern Connecticut Green Action this Saturday morning is having Bob Wall from, is it Smart Power? All these smart.
It is,
power,
yeah. He'd be the one to talk about it, yeah. Yeah,
so he's going to talk about it from a sort of a program point of view. And then our own Paul Aho, Mansfield resident, who put in 2 sun power. This is why it's so confusing, Smart Power and sun power. 2 sun power batteries into his home, is going to speak about it from a homeowner's point of view and what the experience was like. So that'll be 9 o'clock Saturday morning. If anybody's interested, just send me an email and I'll send you the invitation and the link.
Awesome.
Thanks, Peter.
Great. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I think that'll do it, right? So thank you, everyone. And good to see you all as usual.
Good to see you. Yeah.
Good to see you. Thanks.
All right.
Bye, everyone. Have a good